The story begins on a night the world would never know about, a night when the lights in the city felt dimmer and even the sky looked tired. Faye had been moving through her days like a shadow of herself, smiling for everyone except the mirror. She had been battling something she refused to name: exhaustion, heartbreak, a sense of not being enough, the pressure of fame, or maybe all of it mixed together in a way she couldn't untangle. The public saw her glowing, succeeding, smiling in interviews, but behind the scenes, everything was starting to crumble quietly. And the one person who noticed the cracks before they became visible to anyone else was Yoko. Yoko had always had a quiet intuition when it came to Faye, an ability to sense even the smallest shift in her tone, her expression, her silence. She could tell when Faye was truly fine and when she was pretending. And during those weeks, Faye had been pretending harder than ever. The messages she responded to with hearts and laughter gave nothing away. The posts she shared never hinted at pain. But Yoko knew. She felt it in the way Faye withdrew, the way her voice trembled for just a moment when she thought nobody could hear, the way she stopped talking about her dreams the way she used to. The turning point came one night when Faye didn't show up for a rehearsal she was supposed to lead. Her manager couldn't reach her. Her friends assumed she overslept. But Yoko felt something tighten in her chest, as if an alarm had gone off inside her. Without thinking twice, she took her keys, left her apartment, and drove straight to Faye's home. She didn't call, didn't text, she simply went, driven by instinct. When she arrived, the lights were off except for a faint glow from the living room. The door wasn't locked. She stepped inside quietly and found Faye sitting on the floor, knees pulled close, wrapped in a silence that felt heavier than words. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was the kind of broken that happens when someone has been strong for too long. Yoko didn't speak right away. She didn't ask questions or tell Faye to get up or explain herself. She simply sat down beside her on the floor, close enough that their shoulders touched lightly. She let the silence breathe. Hours passed like that. No words, no pressure, just presence. And slowly, Faye leaned her head on Yoko's shoulder as if allowing herself to collapse for the first time. Her voice was barely a whisper when she finally spoke. She said she was tired, tired of fighting, tired of being perfect, tired of trying to be strong for everyone else. She said she didn't know how to keep going. And that was when Yoko made the silent promise that would change everything. She didn't promise to fix everything, because she knew she couldn't. She didn't promise that things would magically get better overnight. Instead, she promised something deeper. She promised she would not let Faye face her darkness alone. She promised she would stay through the breakdowns, through the recovery, through the nights when sleep would not come and the mornings when getting out of bed felt impossible. She promised to be the steady ground when everything else felt unstable. What mattered most wasn't a dramatic declaration. It was the quiet strength behind it. Yoko had always been the calm in chaos, and now she offered that calmness like a lifeline. She stayed with Faye that entire night, not sleeping, simply being there. She cooked her breakfast the next morning even though she was running late for her own schedule. She helped her warm up food when she noticed Faye hadn't eaten properly in days. She made tea and left it by her bedside. She opened the windows to let sunlight in, all while speaking softly, never pushing, never judging. Over the next weeks, Yoko rearranged her life around Faye in ways nobody knew about. She declined events without explanation. She showed up at Faye's apartment unannounced just to keep her company. She drove her to therapy appointments when Faye finally agreed to seek help. She sat in the car during every session waiting for her to come out. And every time Faye stepped back into the car, Yoko would smile gently, as if to say, "You're doing great. I'm here." Faye slowly began to heal in ways she didn't think she could. She started to laugh again, at small jokes, at Yoko's teasing, at moments that reminded her of who she used to be. She started writing again, something she had abandoned months earlier. Yoko never asked what she was writing. She simply brought her warm meals and left water by her desk. She stayed quiet when Faye needed silence and talked when Faye needed distraction. And then came the moment Faye realized the weight of what Yoko had done for her. It wasn't during a big emotional scene. It wasn't during a confession or a breakdown. It happened one morning when Faye stepped out of the shower and saw Yoko in her living room, asleep on the couch, still wearing yesterday's clothes, with notes from her postponed schedule scattered beside her. She realized Yoko had been sacrificing more than time. She had been sacrificing rest, opportunities, energy, just to make sure Faye didn't fall apart alone. It hit her like a wave. The tears came quietly, but they came with force. She stood there watching Yoko sleep, understanding that this was what love looked like, maybe not romantic love, maybe not divine love, but something deep, unshakable, and life-saving. Something she didn't know how to repay. Something she wasn't sure she deserved. As Faye healed, she rose stronger, steadier, more confident. And through it all, Yoko stayed. When Faye returned to work, Yoko was in the front row. When Faye won her next award, Yoko was in the audience, cheering the loudest. When Faye faced moments of doubt, Yoko reminded her of the strength she had forgotten she possessed. When Faye started laughing freely again, Yoko smiled with quiet pride. No one in the industry knew about this chapter of their lives. Fans only saw the pictures of Yoko hugging Faye backstage, the videos of them laughing together, the way they always seemed connected. They didn't know that behind their closeness was a night that changed everything, a night when Faye was about to break, and Yoko caught her without saying a word. The story of what Yoko did for Faye during her darkest hour became a silent legend, known only to the two of them. A private promise, a bond forged in vulnerability and protected by love. And the world would later say their connection felt different, deeper, unexplainable. But if they had seen that night, if they had witnessed the moment Yoko held Faye together in the quiet, they would understand. Some relationships are not loud or dramatic. Some are built in the dark, strengthened by whispered promises and unwavering presence. Yoko didn't save Faye in one grand gesture. She saved her in the little moments, in every quiet choice, every sacrifice, every silent promise that said, "You're not alone. Not this time. Not ever." And that is what made their bond unbreakable. That is what made their story unforgettable. Yoko sat beside Faye as if the world outside no longer existed. Hours passed, maybe more. Neither of them spoke, but the silence between them was no longer heavy. It was something else now, something that felt like a shelter, as if they had quietly stepped into a small world where only the two of them mattered. Faye finally stirred, her voice barely audible as she whispered that she didn't know how much longer she could keep pretending that everything was okay. She confessed she had been carrying too much, pressure from work, unspoken expectations, unresolved wounds from the past, and the loneliness that comes from always being the strong one. She admitted she was exhausted, not just physically, but in a way only Yoko had ever recognized without her saying a word. Yoko listened with absolute stillness, her eyes fixed on Faye with a softness that held no judgment. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer cliches. She didn't tell Faye to be strong or dismiss her pain. Instead, she let Faye spill every truth she had buried for years. When Faye finished talking, tears slipping down her face again, Yoko gently reached for her hand. She held it tightly, grounding her as if reminding her that she was no longer drifting, no longer alone. It was then that Yoko made her silent promise out loud. She told Faye she wouldn't let her go through this alone anymore. She promised she would stay with her, even in the moments when Faye felt like she had nothing left to give. She promised to be there in the quiet hours, the dark moments, the nights when fear sneaks in, and the mornings when Faye needs someone to remind her why she still matters. She promised to be her anchor, her safe place, her constant. And Yoko meant every word. Faye's expression softened in a way Yoko hadn't seen in a long time. The tension in her shoulders loosened. She let her guard down completely, knowing Yoko wasn't offering temporary comfort. She was offering commitment. The kind of commitment that comes from choosing someone not out of obligation, but out of love that has been silently, steadily growing. The next morning, Yoko stayed with her. She cooked breakfast even though she rarely cooked anything more than instant noodles. Faye sat at the table watching her, and for the first time in days, she smiled. It wasn't her usual bright smile. It was small, fragile, but real. Yoko saw it and felt something inside her warm. She didn't comment on it, but she noticed everything. She always did. As days passed, Yoko started showing up more often. Sometimes with food. Sometimes with silly stories just to make Faye laugh. Sometimes with nothing but her presence, simply sitting beside her as they watched the sunset through Faye's window. Faye began to rely on her more, but not in a burdensome way. It felt natural, like breathing. People around them noticed the shift. Staff members whispered that Yoko seemed different, more attentive, more present, whenever Faye was near. Fans began pointing out that their interactions felt deeper, more meaningful, like something between them had crossed an invisible line. But neither Yoko nor Faye addressed the speculation. They didn't need to. What was happening between them wasn't for the world. It was theirs. One evening, after a long day, Yoko found Faye sitting on the rooftop of her building, staring at the night sky. Faye didn't say anything when Yoko arrived. She simply leaned her head on Yoko's shoulder. Yoko didn't move. She just let Faye rest there, listening to her breathing slow, feeling her heartbeat calm. And there, under the quiet glow of the city lights, Yoko made another promise, this time without speaking. She promised to protect this peace, to protect Faye, to protect whatever fragile but beautiful bond had grown between them. She knew Faye didn't just need someone who loved her. She needed someone who understood silence, who understood pain, who understood how to hold someone without pulling them apart. Yoko was that person. She always had been. Later that night, when Faye whispered thank you, her voice cracking, Yoko didn't respond with words. Instead, she wrapped her arms around her and held her close, as if telling her, I'm here. I'm not leaving. Not now. Not ever. From that day onward, everything between them changed, not in dramatic gestures, not in loud declarations, but in small, powerful moments. Yoko showing up at the exact moment Faye needed her. Faye reaching out for Yoko without hesitation. The two of them existing in a rhythm so natural it made everyone around them pause and wonder if this was fate or something even deeper. The world didn't know everything Yoko had done for Faye. They didn't know about the nights she stayed, the words she said, the promises she made in the dark. But Faye knew. And that knowledge alone became her strength, the thing that pulled her out of the shadows she had been trapped in for far too long. And quietly, without either of them announcing it, Yoko and Faye's connection became a lifeline, one that neither of them could imagine living without.